This video is about case studies in marketing, and the way we do it in my class, we use UPM, using popular movies. So among the movies we have used in class are You've Got Mail, Erin Brockovich, 51st Dates, and The Matrix. This is Bom de Hungria, and I'm just an editor and coach for this case studies for class. And if you are wondering or even laughing, sir, these are very old movies. Can we have more recent ones? If you're laughing, then this is my answer to you. The famous Roman poet Horace said, "Why do you laugh? Change the name, and the story is about you." So yes, these movies are old, but that's really irrelevant because the learnings and the stories are so universal that you just change the name of the characters and the story becomes relevant to you. So, what do we achieve? What do we want to achieve using case studies? Well, the outcome that we want is for you to experience marketing in action so that you can remember and apply this in your own life. Yes, we can learn from books and concepts and all that, but a case study allows a real deep dive into understanding marketing in action. Why do we want this? Well, learning is optimized when we feel, view, think, reflect, answer, and discuss cases. How do we do this? Well, we can do it many ways, but for me, I've found that using popular movies, UPM, is a very effective way that students appreciate and where the learning lasts far, far beyond the classroom. So, what has changed? Before the pandemic, I edited splices of movies, and in the classroom, I showed this, and discussions followed. That was before. We're still in the pandemic, and I still use the same splices of movies, but this time, since face to face classes are not possible, I show this on Zoom, and a record of the Zoom class is shared with the class for those who missed the class. Also, I've thought that maybe instead of repeating the session over and over again, I can record this for future classes as well. So this particular video contains a Zoom record of an actual class session. I'm uploading this on YouTube only to facilitate class discussion, and hopefully YouTube will allow it because there's really no movie copyright infringement intended. This particular video on You've Got Mail case was recorded in my V82 class on the 26th day of March 2021, and this was our class certificate for that activity.
Ano tayo, You've Got Mail. You've Got Mail. Tapos ang main title ko, business or personal. So kaya ako gusto to, or for these 5 reasons: marketing and business, may 3 C's, may ethical considerations, magandang small versus big, and the intersection of business and personal. Okay? So yung background nito, it's set in New York. It's a boy and a girl. They liked each other through the internet. Simple lang yung buhay kasi actually sa internet lang sila nakita. Okay? Now, since movie to, kailangan may complexity. Ang mahirap kasi, the girl, Kathleen Kelly, had a boyfriend. She inherited a bookstore from her mom called Shop Around the Corner. And Joe Fox had a girlfriend. He runs a chain of bookstores for his family, and it's called Fox Books Superstore. Okay? And ang maganda dito, para nga maging movie and interesting, their businesses would compete. All right, so in the first part, there are 3 video splices here. Hopefully, you'll be able to, hindi ko alam kung hopefully, while I show it, it's clear with you Just in case hindi, the files are again in the file section of Canvas. So you can watch it separately. And unlike last week, there'll be no grading dito. It's purely discussion. No? So I'll also make sure that I can post this class recording so that, again, if you mag-drop kayo dun sa discussion, you'll be able to watch it again. No? So again, look out for differences between bookstores' marketing strategy and the responses to competition, the ethics of the two business owners.
So please prepare for class discussion after the first part of the movie. There are three parts that will be shown. So prepare in your minds because we will discuss this after the first video. So the question is analyzing the marketing strategy of Shop Around the Corner, which we will now abbreviate as SATC. What did it do right and what did it do wrong? So two parts to this first question. And the second question is clearly there's strong competition between Fox and SATC. How can SATC survive the competition?
No? So we go to the first part I call attack.
All right, welcome back from part one. And now we know it's very clear that the situation it's about business and it's about Fox Bookstore, very young, very aggressive, progressive with many branches. So it's a chain bookstore opening right beside or very near the 40-year-old, very traditional shop around the corner. This is not unusual because we can have local analogies of David versus Goliath. Anytime national bookstore opens in an area versus a bookstore inside the school versus power books versus once upon a time encyclopedias were actually sold one by one or door to door, or even if national can be considered a Goliath in its community, it's a David versus, say, Amazon coming in and delivering products now in the Philippines, and National and Amazon competing versus the greatest warrior in the book business right now is pirated free books in the internet. So how can you compete when your enemy is so much or competitor is so much superior versus what you have done and can do? Now, in the part one of the movie Splice, there were several unethical situations which, again, we would like to discuss and make a decision whether they were really ethical or unethical. And if the judgment is they are still ethical, what can possibly move them to unethical status? So I pre-identify the situation so that we can proceed to discussing them in class. So the first one was Fox Bookstore purchasing City Books, which was closing down because of Fox. And the purchase of the books clearly was at a bargain price. And the other note there is that City Books used was the place where New York authors used to sell their books. So this was now closing down. So the question is, did Fox have a tactical or strategic reason to do this? This was mentioned in the conversation between Joe Fox and his grandfather. So again, the question is this ethical or not? And if it is, what would move this to becoming unethical? Same with the next 6 situations. So the second one is Joe Fox with his uncle and nephew, or aunt and nephew, visiting Shop Around the Corner without openly declaring that they were from the competition. This was why Joe Fox paid in cash, and he warned the children not to use their family names, again to disguise the fact that they were competitors. Was this ethical or not? The third one was the Fox announcement, probably a streamer, while the Fox bookstore was still under construction, mentioning that it was opening around the corner, obviously a play, versus the name of Kathleen's store, Shop Around the Corner. The fourth situation we will review is Fox giving away free cappuccino to attract shoppers during its opening. While this may be considered temporary, a similar version is Fox offering very low book prices that Shop Around the Corner can't possibly match. Is that fair? Is that ethical? The fifth situation was Joe Fox um, being reprimanded by Kathleen Kelly for knowing Shop Around the Corner's annual revenue of $350,000. So Kathleen was so surprised, but Joe Fox, matter of fact, mentioned it to her that he knew exactly how much Shop Around the Corner was doing. In the same party, in the sixth situation, Joe Fox was again taking away all the caviar and icing on the cake without leaving those who will come after him. There was mention that the cake was obviously prepared for all the guests in the party, and Joe Fox was taking it all with him. Again, while the situation is very particular to the cake and might seem too personal, the bigger analogy or the bigger picture will be Joe Fox, the company, taking away all the profits in the book industry in every market that he goes to. So he's taking away all the profits, closing down all competitor stores, and not leaving any market share to the competitors. Is that ethical or not? And of course, when a bookstore closes, like City Books or possibly Shop Around the Corner, when they close, there are employees who become unemployed and will have a hard time finding other jobs. Does Fox have an obligation to employ them or to give them some benefits because it was the trigger or the primary reason why the employees lost their jobs? The seventh situation is when the book author, who had a prior, probably verbal and handshake agreement to do the book signing at the Shop Around the Corner, um, suddenly transferred the book signing to Fox and even denied the fact that a book signing was happening when confronted by Kelly. Cases. So these were the seven situations where there could have been ethical concerns that we will discuss. So for a class discussion, we will tackle three questions. Again, what did Shop Around the Corner do right? What was it doing wrong? And how can it survive competition? So first, we will tackle in class, what did it do right? The second question is, what did it do wrong? And the third question is, how can Shop Around the Corner survive competition? And again, we raised seven possible ethical situations. We mentioned them here for quick discussion. The City Books closing inventory, the store spying with kids, third is opening around the corner, fourth is the free cappuccino and low priced books, knowing exactly the $350,000 a year sales of Shop Around the Corner, taking out all the icing and caviar and not leaving anything to the rest of the party goers, and the seventh, the book signing transfer to Fox. So now we will go to part two, and find out what did Shop Around the Corner actually do in the movie. The decision was to fight, and there was a good analogy or principle by Joe Fox, which Kelly adopted, which was go to the mattresses, translated as going to war. She actually tried to get public sympathy and leveraged the goodwill and heritage of the 40 years that Shop Around the Corner was in that same place in New York. The question to the class is, what else could she have done? And actually, during part two, there were three situations where there could have been ethical issues, and we mentioned them again for discussion, whether they were ethical or not, and what would move them from ethical to being unethical. So, what was shown was the eighth situation, a one sided TV interview featuring, on one hand, Joe Fox being interviewed, and another interview, Kathleen Kelly, as a result of public interest in the competition between the two stores. Second was, and the ninth situation was the TV interview of Kathleen's boyfriend, a journalist, where he sided with Shop Around the Corner during the TV interview. A second situation, similar, was when he wrote an article on the newspaper siding with, of course, Shop Around the Corner. The tenth and last situation where there could have been ethical concerns is kids rallying for Shop Around the Corner. So now we go to part three, winning the battle or losing the war. So some business realities for Shop Around the Corner. As was mentioned in part one, they were doing 350,000 a year in sales, so that was 30,000 a month. During the first week that Fox Bookstore opened and Kathleen did that public sympathy drive, store sales declined 1,200 a week, or if we put it on a monthly basis, it was $5,000 a month. So, for any suggestion or recommendation for Shop Around the Corner to do, the question is, do they have time to do it? Or there's too little time and they have to close anyway because the impact of any intervention or programs against Fox would take too much time. The second one is, do they have store space to deliver or to be able to do the other things, again, in answer to competition? And even if the answer is yes to these first two questions, if Shop Around the Corner is successful in any of this, can Fox copy them? So things to consider. And again, we'll pause a bit just so you can think and we can discuss these realities for Shop Around the Corner. Finally, we look at some basic marketing concepts that may or may not have made a difference to Shop Around the Corner surviving versus the onslaught of Super Fox, or made a difference in its closing. Well, we can compare the piece, the competitive reaction, the strategy and ethics of the two companies and the two owners. So again, I'll give you 10 seconds to try to think about it as we discuss this. Finally, we again look at the overall picture of why this movie was chosen for case studies in marketing. The initial title we have was Business or Personal, and hopefully After all the discussion and sharing in class, we can conclude that it's about business and personal. If you're laughing, then this is my answer to you. The famous Roman poet Horace said, "Why do you laugh? Change the name, and the story is about you." So, yes, these movies are old, but that's really irrelevant because the learnings and the stories are so universal that you just change the name of the characters and the story becomes relevant to you.